Hello, I'm Dr. Priscilla. Today I'm going to read from an online article, Pubs and Their Signs. Please listen carefully to the rhythm at which I speak. Follow along, then try to read it yourself with the volume turned down. I will begin at the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Pubs and their signs. The pub, people say, is the heart of British social life. More than just a place for drinking, it is a place where people gather to talk, to discuss, to do business. Each pub is distinguished by its name, usually displayed on a decorative sign hanging outside the building. Looking at these signs, we can get a fascinating glimpse into local history, as Andrew Rossiter reports. The history of the pub goes back a long way, and of course, much further than general literacy. It is only during the last century and a half that the majority of people in Britain have been able to read at least simple words. Until then, any commerce wishing to identify itself, be it shop or tavern, had to make use of symbols or sign language. Yet, all barber shops Britain were all identified by red and white striped poles. And chemists by large glass bottles of colored water. The situation was different with pubs. In the olden days, many inns and taverns, the predecessors of today's pubs, were catering for visitors and travelers, as well as local customers. The names they gave themselves and the signs they hung up in the street outside their premises were not just for decoration, but served as publicity and to clearly identify one pub or tavern from the other. While many of today's pubs are less than 50 years old, almost each one still has its own distinctive name, and in many cases, a fine sign to go with it. The oldest named pub in Britain is the Trip to Jerusalem in Nottingham, an old inn beneath the castle where medieval knights used to gather before setting out on the Crusades. Only a few English pubs, however, have names dating back more than 3 centuries. One of the more common names that does date back a long way is the Rose and Crown, a name first used just after the Wars of the Roses in the 15th century, when the House of Lancaster, emblem a red rose, fought the House of York, emblem a white rose, for the English crown. The name Rose and Crown has been a popular name for inns and pubs ever since. A lot of older pubs have names reflecting local loyalties or loyalty to king and country. Inns situated near the homes of dukes and lords are frequently named after the duke's or lord's family name, especially when the duke or lord in question happened to own the inn, as was often the case. Thus, a pub called the Norfolk Arms, whose sign shows a heraldic shield or the portrait of Duke, is likely have been named after one of the Dukes of Norfolk, a title created in 1483. As Britain's population expanded in the 19th century, so did the number of pubs. Many new pubs taking names to celebrate military victories or victorious commanders. Following the Battle of Waterloo, the Duke of Wellington became a popular pub name, and fine portraits of the Iron Duke still adorn many English pubs. Britain's status as an island nation is clearly illustrated by the large number of pubs called the ship, not just in ports, but in inland towns as well. Each ship has its own history. Here the ship was founded by a retired seaman. There it was an inn, popular with seamen, and in other places just a nice name, though certainly not chosen without some justification. In some places, pubs are named after specific ships or specific incidents related to the sea. Two of the oldest pubs in England fall into this category. The Mermaid in Rye, named after the mythical figure, half fish, half woman, about which sailors used to love spinning yarns, and the Ship and Turtle in Chester, which seems to have been named after some medieval ancestor of today's mutant ninja heroes. Local industries or activities have given rise to many pub names. Many university towns boast a college arms, catering principally for students and staff alike, and many village captain pubs called the Plough or the Boar's Head. Not all pubs, however, have ancient names. A pub in Bristol, which opened in the 1970s, is called the Man in Space, and its sign depicts an American astronaut. In the small town of Boston, in the east of England, there's a pub called the Boston Blitz, with a sign showing a man playing American football. Though the sign is new, the name of the pub reflects the history of this small town from which settlers crossed the Atlantic 4 centuries ago to found the city of Boston, Massachusetts. Pub signs have been described as Britain's finest free art collection, and that is not a bad description. Some, though not all, are real works of art due to skilled artists and craftsmen. Stanley Chu, one of today's most popular sign artists, has produced about 500 signs. Some people are worried, however, about the future of pub signs. The big breweries, who own most of the Britain's pubs, have begun standardizing some of their outlets and replacing the old names with standard ones, such as the Harvester, frequently with no pictorial sign. A minority of pubs have thus lost their identity, as they have been converted into mediocre mass products. Yet, the majority of English pubs still hold on to their distinctive names, and in many cases, their fine signs. English pubs are a fine tradition with imitations all over the world, and no self-respecting imitation would consider itself authentic without a painted sign. Words from today's article are cater for, provide what is necessary, premises, buildings, knight, soldier on horse, emblem, symbol, happened to own, by chance owned, shield, coat of arms, status, condition, boast, have, boar, wild pig, settler, person who establishes his home in a place, brewery, firm or building where beer is made, outlets, points of sale, to harvest, to bring in agricultural produce when it is ready. Please be aware that this word agriculture here is misspelled. Thank you for listening. I'm Dr. Priscilla, the founder of Speak Excellent English. Today we have read material from Lingua Press. Pubs and their signs.